Okay, so we're going to start seated. Just take a moment to create a stable feeling across the sitting bones, moving the flesh out from underneath the sitting bones. Try to cross at the mid shins and be on the tops of your feet. And then use the support of your hands to help you create more space in your torso, to help you find a feeling of spreading along the chest, and to feel your shoulder blades creating a support for your front body. See if you can position your head in a way that it feels more supported by the spine. Oftentimes moving the head slightly back is helpful. And see if you can start to release the roots of your thighs and the hips so that your legs take on a little more weight. You feel a little bit more anchored by your legs. Keeping a sense of connection through the sitting bones. See if you can start to find a lightness in your torso. And think about the sides of the torso elongating all the way up to the armpits. And then keeping what you've established, bring your hands together in front of your heart and close your eyes, letting your thoughts start to settle when you look away from the brain. And tuning into what is here and now, which is the breath, which is anything you can sense. Letting that active mind just kind of take a back seat for this practice. Really allowing yourself to exist in the sensate experience. A lot of times we're just kind of caught up in our whirling mind. Just put everything aside for now, what is coming next in your day, what has already occurred in your week, and just kind of give yourself this opportunity to be more fully present. And you might want to find something meaningful to kind of shape your practice around this morning. Maybe it's an image that you hold dear. Maybe it's a word or a mantra. Could be an intention or something you're kind of moving toward in your life. And maybe you just want to keep a space open in your heart for something to find its way there. As you're ready, bowing toward the heart. And let your hands release down, and when you're ready, lift your head. Let your eyes gently open. And welcome. So we're coming into forward bending week, and if you read the email, I'm doing a three-week series on these are the times we practice for. And so the forward bending week, we're really kind of turning inward for feeling grounded, feeling resourced, feeling ready for what we need to offer to the world. And so we're going to do it's kind of a mini restorative practice, the forward bending week. So a lot of quieting poses. And so we're going to begin in child's pose. So you can find your way to your child's pose and take any support that you need. You might want to pad your shins. You might want to place something soft between your buttocks and your heels. You might want to raise the hands or the head. So really make it your own. And try to find your arms completely extended. So you're not resting on the forearms in this pose. Your wrists to your elbows are off the floor. The arms are active. And you can even kind of scrub your mat, which just means kind of pulling your hands toward your body to create a sense of the hips moving back toward the feet. Make sure your forehead is grounded so that the brain can be quiet. And if you have knee limitations, it can be helpful to prop behind the knees. Sometimes the limitation is small and you can just use a folded blanket. Other times you might want to put a big bolster between your butt and your feet so that the knees are kept open as much as they need to be. In the first few breaths, we initially just feel the length of the spine being welcome to extend, the sacrum moving away from the skull. And then after a while, you're going to keep that sense of length, but then start to feel a spreading along the back body. A sense of broadness, of horizontal spaciousness. And after an exhalation, you're going to start to leave the pose, coming away from the floor. We're going to be setting up for hero pose, which is the same pose. It's the same, a pose of the same name. It's just a little bit different when we sit up. So now the knees come together and the feet are wide. So it's the opposite of how the knees and feet relate in child's pose. And if you can't take hero pose, you can always take seated pose. We're just going to do some warm-ups with our upper body. And if you are taking hero pose, just make sure that you have your sitting bones connected somehow to the floor. And that could be through a block or through a blanket if it's not directly connected. Just take a little bit of time to arrange your legs so that you see your kneecaps are evenly, the four corners are looking forward, and that your toes are sitting down evenly also. And just begin by pressing down on the tops of the feet. If you're in a cross-legged position, you can just press down on the floor. And try to move your tailbone in, your shoulders back, your skull again above the spine. And try to bring your navel in a little bit so that you're not pushing into the abdomen, which can occur in this pose. And then we'll come into Urdhva Hastasana arms. So keep your sense of weight from the hips down and raise the arms and lengthen up through the fingertips. But descend your inner shoulder blades down your back. Attempt to fully extend your arms. And we'll come to the top of an inhalation, and on an exhalation, we're going to turn right. So take your left hand onto your right thigh and your right hand behind you. You might need to prop the right hand with a second block if you're sitting on one block. So just make sure that you're not having to lean back to anchor that back hand to the floor. Use a block if you need to. Just take a few exhales here. The spine might feel like it's not very willing to turn, so just be patient. Know that your exhales do deepen your twist, and your inhales are a chance to lift through the top of your head, to keep the extension of the spine. And finish by looking over the back shoulder. When you're ready to breathe in again, use that inhale to release the twist and come back to center with the arms up. And on an exhalation, we'll turn to the left. So placing the right hand to the left thigh, the left hand propped behind you. Keeping your neck neutral at first. And using the pressure of the right hand against the left leg to bring the side, that right side of the trunk around. It gets a little stuck back there. I'll try to bring that right armpit, chest around. Roll the left shoulder back. And at the last couple of breaths, turning the head to complete your twist. And when you finish up the exhalation, take the inhale out of it, raising the arms. And on an exhale, crossing your forearms. So grab your elbows. Lengthen up through the elbows on the in-breath, but descend the shoulder blades. And on an exhalation, we're going to tilt the right elbow up, left elbow down. Anchoring especially into the right shin so that we keep our sense of evenness across the shins. And that's sitting bones if you're in Sukhasana, if you're not in Virasana. And as you lengthen the right side body, make sure it's not at the cost of collapsing the left side body. So see if you can find a way to maintain a sense of spaciousness from the right hip to the right armpit. I meant to say left there. The right side is obvious, the left is less obvious. And on your inhale, you're going to establish those level forearms, come up and out of it, and we'll extend the arms just to change the crossing of the arms. And then again on an in-breath, lengthen up through the elbow tips, take the elbow tips back, exhale, you're tilting the right elbow down this time, left elbow up. And equalizing the shins, so carrying weight back to the left shin side, keeping both sides of the trunk long. Wonderful. Inhale, center, release the arms up, and then exhale, release your arms down. So now we'll come into downward facing dog to really get the legs opened up and start to work into some of those forward bends where the legs are fully extended. Taking a moment to get yourself ready for downward dog. And I always want to include that you can use a chair for this pose. If the weight bearing on the wrists is too much, you can always use a chair and stand up and reach for the chair seat and kind of mimic the pose that way. So as you're ready, from hands and knees position, curl the toes under and exhale, extend your legs. And just start to keep your knees bent and your heels lifted. Start to lengthen the spine fully. And then begin to step the heels down one at a time. And you can go at any rhythm that feels right for you. As you lower the heel, you can draw the toes up, reach the toes toward the hands. And really try to widen the backs of your knees. And then you'll come back to two lifted heels. Bend your knees and look for your navel. Really taking the navel toward the spine. And then begin to look forward and extend the heels down at the same time. Landing with a neutral neck alignment. And as the heels descend, the toes keep extending toward the hands. Roll your inner wrist down. Roll your inner upper arms up. Try to keep the shoulder blades moving toward your chest. About 5 more breaths. And if you need to leave early, you can walk into a standing forward bend, kind of a ragdoll, a passive version of forward bend. About 3 more breaths. With the next inhale, just start to move the hands and feet toward one another. And make sure that you see your feet are at least as wide as your hips, if not a little bit wider. And we're going to start with the very passive version of standing forward, Uttanasana. So go ahead and grab your elbows. You might need to bend your knees here. Eventually we're going to straighten the legs, but for this version, you might need to keep your knees a little bent. And just see if you can access some freedom in the neck. You might shake your head. You might rotate the chin around in a circle. You might nod yes. And see if you can tap into a feeling of a reverse flow of gravity along your spine. And the weight of the head is just kind of benefiting that release along your spine. Notice how the pose invites extension to the sides of the trunk. Go ahead and drop your hands. If your blocks are nearby, you can just set them up from where you are. Otherwise, you're going to need to come up slowly and grab your blocks and place them in front of you. So where we're going is Arda Uttanasana, which is the half standing forward bend. And the things we're looking for today, we're going to move from this pose to full Uttanasana, but you might end up in kind of a quasi in-between place. So the two pieces that you really want to kind of find here first are your feet are balanced. So we're looking for not all the weight in the heels, we're looking for not clinging on our toes. So really balance the weight from front to back of your feet. So it's centralized, but also from side to side. Some of us pronate. So just kind of try to find full balance in the soles of the feet. So once you have that, the second priority is find your straight legs. And this is another one where you might need to elevate the hands to a chair seat to find straight legs. And there's no shame in that. It's really just about, it is what it is kind of moment. So find your straight legs, find your balanced feet. And now you're going to do your best to keep those two things active. And you're going to either bend your elbows and take it deeper, or you're going to drop the blocks down. You're going to come into your deepest Uttanasana with your feet balanced and your legs straight. So you should have the feeling of quadriceps being engaged. They're squeezing, they're contracted. Your kneecaps are kind of plugged into your thighs really well. Backs of the knees are open. And you're descending the trunk, your head is heavy. And after a few breaths, you might need to drop the height down under the hands. So just kind of listen to that, pay attention if the body starts to ask for more depth. Keep the feet balanced and the legs extended. We'll be here another 8 breaths. Good. We'll come back through the concave or flat lumbar position, Arda Uttanasana. And now you might need to bend your knees to help yourself stand up. Engage your core muscles toward your spine. Take your hips and come all the way up to standing on an in-breath. Okay. And now we're going to just find mountain pose to recalibrate in a standing position. So join the feet if you can. If you can't, you can keep them up to hip distance. And we're looking to align the second toes with the heels. So you might need to adjust your spacing. We're all shaped differently to get that alignment. Shoulders above hips. The arms are extended at your sides. And again, the skull is really directly above the spine. Again, the feet should feel balanced. Find a sense of broadness across the toe bases, from big toes to small toes. Sense every single toe pad. And now see if you can just bring a little bit of additional weight into your heels. Looking down toward your cheeks. Tailbone moving deep into the body toward the front body. Relaxing at the temples. Softening the jaw. And now we're going to just do a visualization exercise, starting at the hip crests. You're going to lengthen all the way to the armpits. And then there's a U-turn at the armpits, and you're going to descend some weight down the inner arms, anchoring into your fingertips. And sometimes you can You can do this visualization with your breathing, coordinate with your breath. Inhale from the hip crest to the armpits. And then there's that turnaround, the U-turn at the armpits, and exhale, feel some heaviness in the inner arms to the fingertips. And just do that a couple times. Lengthening up the sides of the trunk, giving some weight to the arms. Good. And now go ahead and blink the eyes open, release the Tadasana, shake the legs out. We're going to use either 2 blocks or a chair seat. It kind of depends on your experience in Uttanasana. If your legs are really tight, you might benefit from more height. We're going to come into Uttanasana. So the chair seat would be a good prop for you. Otherwise, 2 blocks to the right end of the mat. We're going to be doing Uttanasana with hand support first, and then we'll be doing it hands-free. So we really want to feel lots of support with this first version, because the idea is for that to carry over when we do it with less contact with the floor. So we're gonna step the feet wide here. You can step your feet wide. We're gonna turn the right toes 90 degrees and then pivot in with the left toes. You might even step that left foot out a little wider so that you can really square your hips toward the right side of the mat. So you take your hips and manually turn them, and then push in on the tailbone a little bit to adjust the pelvic tilt. And try to find your 2 really fully extended legs. So especially the back leg, which oftentimes gets forgotten, compact the back leg from front to back. And we'll raise the arms here. And again, invite that spaciousness to the sides of the trunk. Descend your inner shoulder blades. On an exhalation, extend forward, try to align your breastbone with your right leg. And then take your blocks or your chair seat and center it so that it's right on top of that right foot. Your blocks are evenly to each side of the right foot. Take a few breaths here and just roll the outer right hip back, because we get a little bunched up in the right-sided torso, or whatever leg is forward side. Keep looking forward. Try to get as much length of the trunk as you can, as if the shadow of the nose is about to pass beyond the big toe. And on an exhalation, spread the length of your trunk toward the right leg and bow deeply. But again, just like Uttanasana, if your leg bent, come out of it a little bit and be in the shape that you need to be to keep your right leg fully extended. These forward bends are only as good as the legs. So if the legs get compromised, it just becomes a little bit of a less than experience. So really consider the legs very important in your forward bends. See if you can shift a little weight to your right big toe, left small toe. And on an in-breath, you'll come halfway out of it. And then see if you can anchor enough into your legs that you can grab your hips and inhale and come up. If you have the clearance, you can pivot wide. Otherwise, just kind of get your way out of there, and you're gonna move your props, whatever you're using, to the opposite end of the mat. You can step the feet back together. And for second side, we'll jump or step out. So feel free to jump your way out. You can step the way out. It's a quiet practice, so I'm choosing to step, but it's really your choice. Sometimes we need a little bit more going on to keep the brain. Left toes turn out, right toes turn in. Shifting that pelvic tilt to neutral. Oftentimes we kind of, if it's thinking about a bowl, it's pouring out the front rim. We want to kind of correct for that. So the front rim, back rim are even. Legs are straight. Inhale, raise the arms. Exhale, lengthen forward. And again, you're going to place the prop evenly around the left foot so that your breastbone is lined up directly with the left leg. Because we shift weight here to the left, you're going to correct for that by inviting weight to left big toe, right small toe. Roll the outer left hip back. Sense that your left leg is fully extended, and that's going to be the priority, is to keep that as you exhale and let your trunk descend toward the left leg. So if the legs are really full of integrity, if they're effortful, then we truly can rest the brain. If the legs aren't doing their job, then the brain is going to be a little bit more activated than it should be. And just spend a couple more exhales here. And on an in-breath, you'll come back to that concave lumbar position, a half position. Really anchor into your legs, compact your hips, and free the hands to the hips, and inhale, come up. And once you're turned back toward the broad side of the mat, you can jump or step the feet together. And just put yourself in mountain pose, unfolding the arms. Maybe coming back to that U-turn exercise. The body kind of senses its way back into alignment. And rather than making the quadriceps more bulky, they're already bulky, by compacting them with a hardness toward the backs of your thighs, imagine the backs of the thighs absorbing the fronts of your thighs. Take the buttocks toward the front body and feel your legs very extended. And you're going to let your eyes open. And we're going to take Arda Uttanasana now, hands free. We're going to use our Gomukhasana arms. I just moved my blocks, which I shouldn't have because we're not going to use hand support. That being said, if hands-free isn't a wise choice for you today, if your balance is a little bit less than, then feel free to prop to the right side for this, this next pose. So we are going to use a strap for most of us to connect the hands. I think we're going to leave it over the left shoulder because I want to have us fix the bottom arm first today. So we need this left hand to help us do that. So what you're going to do is take your right hand behind your back and then use your free left hand to grab your right wrist and pull the arm over, pull the right arm over. Essentially, you're trying to put the right elbow in alignment with the right shoulder. When we start, it's usually a little wider than the shoulder. So pull the arm over. So you sense your elbow is under the line of the shoulder. Keeping that, you can release your left hand. Try to slide the right hand to the area between your shoulder blades. And as you do that, you might notice that elbow just poked out a little bit. Of course, we can't use our left hand to babysit the whole time. So you're going to have to use your own efforts to keep inviting that right elbow back to midline. Okay, so we fix the bottom arm first. There's two ways to do this. You might be able to grab your strap with that right hand if it's dangling down your back. And you're going to take your left arm up now. Rotate the arm, revolve the arm, so that the outer arm moves forward, the inner arm moves back, the knuckles face forward, bending the arm, grab your strap. Walk the hands together until they're as close as can be, and then take the elbow tips back so that you feel your shoulder blades pressing in. And now, because we're doing a little extra with the pose, just step the feet wide. Revolving the right toes out, left toes in. Move the tailbone in, find your legs completely straight. Spreading the chest without shortening the lumbar. Top of the in-breath. Exhale, lengthen forward just halfway. Aligning the chest with the right leg. And again, think about the nose extending out beyond the big toe. Anchor into your back heel, but also remember to shift weight across the feet from the outer feet to the inner feet of the front foot, from the inner foot to the outer foot of the back foot. And now again, with the right leg remaining extended as your kind of your top priority, you can exhale and let the chest come closer to the thigh. And keep resisting the elbow tips up. And we'll just stay 5 breaths. This is more challenging, of course. I'm just supporting these actions for just 4 more breaths. And really anchor into your back heel. Use an in-breath. And on that in-breath, you can start to come out, come all the way up, and revolve the toes forward. Releasing your arms out of the Gomukhasana position. And you can just put the strap over your right shoulder. You can step the feet in again. We'll fix the bottom arm, so now we're going to fix the left arm. Behind the back. Right hand grabs the wrist, gently pulls that left arm to the right. So sense where your elbow is now. You want to kind of maintain that as best you can. As you release the grip on your wrist and slide the left hand to the area between the shoulder blades. If you can grab your strap there, great. Extend the right arm. Revolve the arm well. And then bending at the elbow, grab the strap and close the distance between the hands. Move the tailbone in, separate the feet, left foot, right foot. Revolving from the root of the left thigh, toes out. Right toes in. Fully extended legs. Tailbone moves in, elbow tips back. Lengthen the lumbar by taking the tailbone in. Come to the top of the in-breath, exhale halfway forward, aligning the chest with the left leg. And really observe yourself here. Steadiness and the full leg extension really are top priorities. And then keeping that, you can exhale and bow as deeply as you're able to maintain those 2 things. Shifting weight to left big toe, right small toe. Just 3 more breaths. Resist those elbow tips up. Anchor into your back heel, lengthen through the crown, use your in-breath, bring yourself all the way up, and then revolve your feet so that your feet are toes forward, and release the strap. You can just put the strap aside. And join the feet if you can for mountain pose, otherwise keeping up to hip distance. Align yourself, close your eyes. And once you are in the shape of the pose, the wise actions are on board, just let the pose work on you. Be as effortless as you can be. When we master this pose, it really does feel a lot like Shavasana, a standing Shavasana. Little bit of extra weight into the heels. Good. So we're going to open the eyes. We're going to come into humble warrior, which is not an Iyengar pose, by the way, but I do like the pose for what it is, which is a good deep hip opener, and it's more passive than a warrior two that's more active with the torso. So that in this version, the torso is just descending, the legs are really holding us up. But different than we've been doing, the leading leg gets to have the deep knee bend, thus we get the deep experience into the hip. So you can put either two blocks to your right side, or you might, if you're limited by hips, or if you're feeling tight in your legs today, you might use the chair seat again. So it's really up to you. And I don't actually use anything, so that's another option. If you're able to be a little deeper, you might not need props. So we're going to step the feet wide. And we'll be turning the right toes out, left toes in. But this is a lateral pose, meaning we're going to keep the front body facing the broad side of the mat. You're going to kind of take on the shape of warrior two with your legs. Just take a nice little deep right knee bend here. And then what we're going to do is lengthen the torso to the right, and we're going to bring the arms inside the space of the right foot. So that's either the chair seat is right there or the blocks are right there. And if you're able to touch the floor, then you can just rest your hands, but you're going to bow your head. Keep anchoring into the left heel. And think about the underside of the right thigh supporting the top right thigh. Even though you're trying to create 90-degree knee, you want to feel that that underside of your thigh is lifting towards the top thigh. Prop your hands so that you can again get your head to kind of hang freely and your torso to feel as passive as you can. And now we're going to be kind of creeping our way to a wide forward bend. So you're going to just kind of walk your hands to center and come out of the bent knee on the right side and turn your right toes in, left toes in, so that all 10 toes are pointing forward. You may need a block here underneath your left hand. We're going to be doing a little twist. Otherwise, you're just propping or tenting up that hand right below the shadow of the sternum. Right hand comes to your hip. And now just sense that you have a little tripod. Try to spread your weight evenly. And on an exhale, revolve your trunk to point to the right. Roll the right shoulder back and keep lengthening out to the crown. Don't let the crown of the head drop. Remember, the top of the head is representative of the energetic line of the spine. So don't just drop the head. And just take a few more moments revolving the torso. Good. And now exhale, you can turn back to the floor, and we're going to be creeping over to the left. So you can pivot your left toes out, right toes in, and take the bent knee. But if you're using props, I'm sorry, you'll have to place your props. It's maybe requiring you to come out of this cute little transition. But try to bend your left knee, creating as much of a 90-degree shape as you can there. And then remember, the arms are going to be within or inside the space of the left leg. So the shoulders should be within the left leg, as should the arm of that left arm. Sometimes I take the backs of my hands to the floor. If those of you that are hands to the floor, it can be a little more passive for the shoulders. And the idea here is just to kind of suspend the brain, let it float inside the skull. So make sure your head is just heavy, dangling from the spine. We have the left leg, knee bent, but still keep your right leg straight. Squeezing the left knee to the shoulder. or the arm or whatever it's in contact with. Make sure you can see a little dome in the arch of the right foot, that you're grabbing the floor with the skirting of the outer right foot. And just 2 more breaths. On an inhale, you can just kind of look forward. And again, we're going to walk it wide. Toes are going to point forward. Same thing this time, we're going to revolve the trunk to the left. So your right hand will be propped up, again, directly under the sternum. Left hand to your left hip. And you might need a block under that hand again, so make sure you're not compromising your pose just to touch the floor. Use that tripod of support evenly. On an exhale, start to revolve the trunk to the left. Lengthen out through the top of your head. Try to bring that right armpit chest around out of the shadows. The top shoulder rolls back. Squeezing out a couple more exhales. After you finish the next one, you can inhale to face the floor. And now you can stay right here and walk your hands forward without coming onto your toes. So keep weight in your heels as you walk your hands forward. Keep your hips in line with your heels as if you're against a wall. We're going to try to just grab some space for the trunk this way. And then exhale, bowing deeply. You can leave the hands forward, which keeps the sense of spaciousness to the torso. And keep rolling the outer feet to the floor, sucking up the inner arches of the feet. The first upward draw of energy from the earth is the arches of the feet, the first bandha. Lift the arches of your feet. Keep your legs as extended as you can. You can always prop the hands again, blocks or chair, so that your legs are straight. Good. Now begin to walk your hands toward your mat and begin to walk the heels and the toes in. And then bend your knees and come all the way up. Good. And one last time, put yourself in mountain pose, looking away from your brain and receiving your breath. So we're gonna move down to the floor now. It's important to balance this kind of practice. It's very forward bend intensive with some sort of back bend. But that being said, we don't want to go into our deepest back bend because that's too extreme. So we're going to take bridge pose, holding a strap in our hands. So you'll want to use your strap. Otherwise, you don't need any props. And if you don't have a strap, I think most of you do, but you can always improvise by grabbing the edges of your mat and kind of pulling the mat. But the idea is to put something in our hands so that we can roll our shoulders down and we can keep a sense of broadness across the shoulder girdle. So come onto your back. I'm going to tilt my camera down here a little bit. There we go. And then you'll want to run the strap kind of right below the line of the buttocks. And you're holding it with your palms up, and you're holding it with your wrists only as wide as your shoulders. And then once you have that, just spend a little more time with it, trying to tuck your shoulder blades up towards your chest and trying to roll as much of the outer upper arms down as you can. Okay, so then find straight arms, fully extended arms. try to seal the gap between your lower back and the floor, and make sure your heels have walked in toward your sitting bones and your toes are aligning in front of your heels. Chin is toward the chest. On an exhalation, lift your hips. And imagine the tip of the tailbone and just try to point it toward the ceiling. And step into your legs and feet a little bit more so you can relax the buttocks a little bit more. And think about verticality of the chest. So every time you breathe in, just raise the chest a little bit more, like the sternum is finding the chin. Use the outer upper arms into the floor to help you lift the chest. Keep rolling the thumb side of your hands down, which will help you roll the outer upper arms down. You might close the eyes here to save a little energy there. You might look toward your cheeks to keep a sense of quiet in your brain. As we know, back bends stimulate the brain. So do what you can to keep yourself as quiet as you can. And we're going to stay about 5 more breaths. Once you have that next inhale, you're just going to walk the spine down on an exhale. And take a moment to let the sacrum sink into the floor, and you'll feel your lumbar curve returning. And then walk your feet wide. You can put your hands on your belly, let your knees fall together. On an exhale, keep your feet wide, but let your knees float to the left and your head float to the right. Inhale, your head and knees center. Exhale, knees right, head left. And just keep moving like that for a few more breaths, exhaling to the sides and inhaling to the center. Good. And then bring your knees back to center. We're going to roll to our side and help ourselves up. And before we come into Shavasana, we're going to come into legs up the wall. So if you don't have wall space nearby, then you can substitute with a chair and rest your legs on a chair. But we want to create a little support for the lower back. So whether you're using a wall or the chair, you can put 1 or 2 folded blankets under your lower back. If you're on the wall, those blankets can come right up to the wall. And it's a little tricky to get onto the height. So you usually sitting sideways to the wall, this is for people using the wall, is a good approach. And then you'll try to, at the same time, take your torso down and your legs up. And then, of course, you have to do a little bit of maneuvering to land with your buttocks and your legs as close to the wall as they can be. If you're using the chair, you're just resting the lower legs, and you can kind of you can keep your thighs vertical. And from either position, unfold the arms and close your eyes. So there's so many benefits to Viparita Karani, which is this pose, legs up the wall pose. But one of them is that it really is a great elixir for leg fatigue. And in a standing forward bend practice, we really exhaust the legs. So just paying special attention here to your legs being very passive. All the effort from the standing practice can fall away here. And if blood was pooling low in the legs, now it gets to move up higher. We can refresh the circulation of the legs. And with your back supported, just kind of acknowledge that and releasing. Think about a deep tap root coming out of your sacrum into the prop, into the floor. And as you release the lower back, you can almost feel a coordinated release to the abdomen. When the back sinks into the floor, then the abdomen follows. And you might notice that your exhalations begin to elongate. You might also notice your inhales begin to shorten a little bit. And in this way, we get to an even quieter place in the brain. So we'll spend the next 2 to 3 minutes here, no longer willfully trying to make anything happen. We'll start to come out of the pose now by bending the knees. And of course, if you're using a chair, your knees are bent already. But you're going to help yourself down to the floor from either position and by rolling to either side. And you can come onto your back. I'm going to finish with a supine twist before Shavasana, just to make sure the spine is fully released. Once you're on your back, you can spread your arms out perpendicular from the torso. And for some of us, crossing the legs isn't a good option, so you can always keep your legs just together and not crossed and move them to the side. Otherwise, you're going to be crossing your right leg over the left. And then stacking your hips, in this case, right above left. So that requires you to shift your left hip a little bit to the right so that you can put your hips more in a vertical alignment. And then take your left hand onto your right knee or your thigh, just to kind of give the legs a sense of security, that they can land. And then begin to roll your head to look to the right. You might decide to close your eyes. You might rest on the back of your right hand to help your shoulders settle with more weight. Inviting the right side of your body to elongate with a couple in-breaths, opening space between right knee and hip. Couple in-breaths, opening space between right hip and shoulder. So begin to rewind those steps and ease yourself back to center. If your legs were crossed, uncross them and take a moment to just straighten out on the center of your mat, inviting the spine to lengthen, the hips to become level, the shoulders level. And then you're going to cross left leg over right, extend the arms out to the sides, and tuck your right hip under you, left hip above, so that the legs can gently fall to the right. Use your right hand to hold them there when they arrive. You can always prop under the knees if you feel like your legs need some support. If the legs don't feel like they can land or relax, give them support. It's going to really help your twist deepen. And after a few moments of settling, then just kind of inviting that spaciousness to the left side body. And twists can help us bring back a little energy when a forward practice might leave us a little bit less energized than we need to be for our day. And a twist brings back energy in a way that doesn't upregulate the nervous system. So from here, you're going to be coming back to center and just setting up for final resting pose. And do so in a way that kind of keeps your brain quieted down, keeps your sense organs quiet. You might need to move and find things, but try to keep the body also quiet. We'll have a 3-minute Shavasana today. If you're cool, make sure to cover up. And if your eyes have trouble staying closed, make sure to close them. Make sure to use an eye pillow or something over them. That's what I meant to say. Take the first moments of Shavasana to send out that global invitation to your body to let go of all effort. And just imagine the earth absorbing your weight like a sponge. And again, just kind of reminding the brain to take a back seat. Becoming that passive witness, observing your breath, your sensate experience. We're fully conscious here. We're just not engaging with those thought waves. You might notice them. You might even name the category of thought that passes: planning, worry, whatever it is. If your attention gets pulled into thought, just redirect back to breath. smoothing out across the brow line. The center brow between the eyebrows deep into the center of the head. Relaxing all the way back. This is our center of intuition and place of inner knowing. Many of us hold tension here. And when we hold tension here, we block our sense of innate wisdom, of inner knowing. Just give some attention to that space. Turning your attention completely over to the next several waves of your breath. Maybe picturing yourself in a tiny boat, riding those waves of breath. The peaks, the valleys, the lulls between the breaths. Let's take a deep cleansing breath from your toes all the way to the top of your head. And on the exhale, just release as much of that breath as you can. Tracking it out as far as you can. When you get to the very finish, returning to automatic, unconditioned breathing. Inviting very small movement into your body. Fingers, toes, wrists, and ankles, head and neck. When there's enough movement, folding your hands onto your belly, bending your knees, shifting to either side of your body. And from the sideline position, easing yourself to a seated position. Establishing again the foundation of the legs that support the buoyancy of the spine, that supports the brightness of the brain. Connecting the hands in front of the heart. Looking toward your heart. Maybe recalling that starting wish for your practice. And let's take a deep breath in together as a virtual group from our own homes. Still a group. Let it go. From the place within me that I know to be divine, I honor that place within each of you. Namaste. Right. So good to see all of you this morning. Thanks for joining. And we'll have more classes Wednesday and Friday. Friday we'll have a little bit more of a seated practice. So come back for more if you'd like to. All right, take care everyone. Bye.